Well, I'm now recording. I didn't want to sing for the screen recording. Um, if I go over to Add in Blender, Mesh, Monkey, this is Suzanne. This is the yearly awards for Blender artistry are known as the Suzannes. And they're named after the monkey from Mallrats from the movie from 1994. So there's the deep cut right there. We're going to work with Suzanne today just to show a little bit of geometry editing inside of Blender, right? So Suzanne, as much as we love Suzanne, has a couple of flaws, all right? And we're going to learn how to put materials on Suzanne, and eventually those will become material instances inside of Unreal, all right? So we're all leading somewhere. I have a path. I'm just not a bunch of just non sequitur jokes all the time. So in Blender, if I want to manipulate objects, I have to be in object mode. That's the very top. And you see there's little numbers assigned to them, right? So like if I switch between 1, 2, and 3, different editing modes. And then right here, and of course it's really small, I have selection mode. I can select vertex points, right? Those are the points. You have lines, the lines between the points, and planes, the geometry between the vertex points, right? So those are the different things you'd ever want to manipulate in a 3D model, right? So I'm in edit mode right now, and I can edit this, and I can select things. So first of all, I have some eyeballs, and I want to make both what's called the sclera, the white part, and then the pupil, which is the dark part, right? So let's just select one eyeball. Actually, so Suzanne is one mesh. Yeah, so Suzanne is one mesh, but I'm going to go over to select the planes, and you can see indeed I've selected geometry, right? And then I'm going to select over here by holding shift down, and I've selected geometry. If I hit the up arrow, it then selects all connected geometry. So now if I scroll in, you can see these eyeballs are kind of their own thing, right? So over on the right side where you see like your details for Suzanne, the very last one is called material properties. So with material properties, I'm going to create a new one. Give it a name. Actually, let's do new that way. Okay, so it's called material 3. Maybe we can call it sclera. I think I spelled that. Whatever, it doesn't matter. And then we can give it a color, right? Well, it's white, right? So it doesn't really matter. But for our case, we're going to change it in Unreal anyway. So I can make it red. Doesn't matter to me. And it's on all of it. That's fine for right now. Cool. Now I want to just select just the pupils now. And I'm going to hit the up arrow. You see this, the pupils are 3D, right? So I want to get those side ones too. Hit the up arrow once, got them. Let's make another material. And we'll call that one pupil. And I'll make it black. And then assign. And then my pupils are on there, right? And then I could select just anywhere and then just hit up arrow a whole bunch. And I've now selected the rest of the geometry, right? Make another material that's new, call it body. And then it doesn't matter because we're going to change it in Unreal, but let's just make it like green or something, blue, and assign. Cool. So you see that we have a really drugged out monkey. I didn't do that. It's been playing Grand Theft Auto, right? It's like done with the mission. We're keeping on theme here. But you see there's some imperfections, right? Some of the like its eyeballs are bleeding, right? Like it's bleeding out. So let's not be too afraid to fix geometry. A lot of people don't have 3D modeling skills. We're not going to have any classes to teach it, but let's not be afraid. So select that point. I'm going to hold down Control, select that point. Or maybe hold down Shift. There you go. Got 2 points. Go into move mode, and then I can just lift it up. Right? Little eye tuck. Cool. So you can make these little edits and not be afraid, all right? And it's fine. That's all I want to do, to show you that there's no big deal. So now I can just go back to object mode if I want to move it around. Everything looks good to me. I have 3 materials. The materials will be called sclera, pupil, and body when I put them into Unreal. And let's go ahead and export it. FBX. And then the secret is to, we don't need textures, but if we had textures, you need to copy them into the FBX. The FBX is just a container that has a lot of things in there. It could be lights and cameras and textures. We don't have any textures, we have materials, but I want to go ahead and go through the same process. So copy it and then make sure you embed textures. Again, I don't need textures, but I'm just good habit to have. And then we don't have any animations. And the geometry, we want to make sure that we are smoothing the face. If you don't do this, when you import it, it will give you a warning about smoothing groups. It's not an error, it's just a warning, but I want, what? Yeah, so this is how you fix that. That was worth the price of admission, the class alone, right? Like we don't have bones, so like I don't, all this kind of stuff, we don't have to worry about it. Applying modifiers, we don't have any modifiers on it. If we had blend shapes or shape keys, things like facial features, if you apply modifiers, sometimes it'll freeze the face. So maybe you don't want to have modifiers. I'll just explain what these settings are. But as long as I'm saying copy and put the textures in there, that's fine. And then because I'm a bad person, I'm going to put it in my downloads. Suzanne. Okay. That's a heavy lift in Blender. All right. So my style guide is that I put everything in assets, and then I create a folder for static meshes. Oops. Meshes. Cool. And then I'm gonna make a folder for Suzanne. And then go trudge through my downloads. And Naked Bob, just Suzanne. And then by default, like here's reset defaults. It is not a skeletal mesh. It's not a high geometry thing, so we're not going to make it nanite. By default, it's going to create materials based off of looking inside the FBX locally, and you can see it already knows it was made in Blender using a certain version of FBX. It's fine. And then look at that. We have geometry with 3 materials called sclera, pupil, and body, and they are the same color. That is how you do it. That's just everything else is just scaling up from there. Right? And there is our drugged out monkey. Terrifying. Right? But they are all of the same. All these materials, though, are just repeating the same node. Right? So this is what the first thing we're going to adjust is we don't need to have them all be the same node. We want to have one single master. So we're going to create a material. I'm going to call it main. The idea of having like masters is not really like that politically correct anymore. So we're just gonna say call it main material. But if you're looking for it for reference, it is called a master material if you're looking through it. So M underscore or what we call it main or base, main base. It doesn't really matter what we call it. Cool. And then inside of this one, let's start thinking about what we want. We definitely want to have color. So I'm going to hold down the 3 button and click. We have a 3 vector. Then I'm going to as a vector, which is a 3 constant, excuse me, and convert that to a parameter. Give it the name color, and now we can address that from instances. So base color, and we might want to give it a default color of just like white to start off with. And what are some other things we want to drive around in real time? Well, I know that we're going to probably do emissive. So you can just right click on these nodes and say promote to parameter. And it says emissive color. I actually don't want emissive color. I actually want to have, I just want to have a single value. I can hold down S and click, and I have a scalar parameter. That's for scalar. It's also over on the right side. If I take my palette, bring it in, you see we have constants, right? These are the numbers and letters I'm holding down when I click, and it can bring them in, right? And we're going to multiply our parameter by the color so that we're making the color emissive, right? The reason why I'm using a multiplier is that we don't want the value to go over 1 for the color because then it will just bleed out. So that's when you use multiply. You could use, it's all shader math. Like if we wanted to blow it out and make it just over white, we can make it additive instead of multiply. Multiply keeps the colors between 0 and 1. All right, and by default, the parameter is 0. I'm going to make the default parameter 1. And I'm going to change the parameter name to be glow. Save. And again, you'll see it might take a little bit longer in this main material or the base material, but when you make it the instance, it can be manipulated in real time. So now we have body, pupil, sclera. Maybe we want to rename them MI for material instance. And then, but these are not instance materials, right? They're also main materials themselves. If you normally to make an instance, we right click it and do this, right? But if you have a very complicated material or something you don't want to change it, you do it this way. Actually, that's right. Oops. Actually, it has to be an instance first. The create instance. It calls MI body. You'll see that now this is the parent material. If I wanted to choose a different one, if I want to go use a Quixel, if I wanted to use the Edith Finch material, I can reparent it to the Edith Finch material, and then I could have all those parameters available to me, right? So here's how you take instances and parent them, right? I don't need these guys actually at all, now that I think about it. We'll start from scratch. Delete. Sure, and now their monkey's naked. Let's go back to my map. And we were doing it in the ocean, which I think I got rid of the ocean and put a lake in, so I'm just misdirecting everyone. Wow, that's just crawling. I deleted the ocean, right? Yeah, it's just a lake. This is taking longer than DMX sample to load. I don't even have Zoom open. Well, the cooking show is not going well. Nice. All right, so, oh yeah, you're not responsive. Oh yeah, this is great. Okay, one more time. In class. Has anyone ever watched the TV show Little Britain? It's from like 20 years ago. It was a great sketch where this woman always just says, the computer says no. It's just, computer says no. All right, let's just do it inside this beautiful minimal default with the Ames chairs and not really worry about my previous world. Okay, so assets, I might not even have, I do have Suzanne, I do have there. Okay, great. So bring in the monkey. Yay, monkey. And then we'll make sure that we're locking off our exposure, which is right here. So 1 and 1. And then we can say how bright it is based off of exposure compensation. And because I'm going to do glow, I want to make sure that eye adaptation is not on. So you can look at it And then I'm going to take the main material and say general instance. So we're going to call it MI body. Throw it on body. Or we could do it actually inside of this editor so that it's on all of the instances of it. So select body and find out that this is, there you go. There's body. MI's layer. And then that goes in that one. And then people. And can I just do this? No, that did not work. Cool. So we could double click on these and we can see that we have glow available and color, and that this is change the color of the body, color of the sclera. Let's enable it. Let's make this one red again. That was kind of fun. And change this one blue. And then black for pupils. Cool. Done. All right. But now if we have another one, so now Suzanne has a sister named Suzette. We can save. And then we can either make a copy or we can make another instance, right? So I can make a copy of body, duplicate, throw it on the body of just this one. And then we might want to call this one MI body blue. And then this one might want to call it MI body green. Okay, so this is just how you organize these things. And then we can make it green. Cool. And there you go. So that makes all sense. Now I want to make the eyes glow. All right, so let's go to our sclera. And we got glow. Super cool, right? Lumen. It's lighting the whole thing. Amazing. It's so good. So that's like 700, 500. That's some extreme values. There you go. So it's using the same instance material, so it's driving both of those pupils. If I wanted to have one glow and one not glow, I need to make two different sclera materials, right? So this is the idea of they're all inheriting the same parameters from the master, but only the individuals have parameters that are being. Wow, Lumen's just blowing my mind. That's so cool. Look at fade on the floor. It's so cool. Anyway, cool. So again, simple stuff, but worth going over and making sure that that's like really drilled home. All right. So, great. So let's do some Quixel assets as well. And again, the idea is to replace our previous map with better assets. I don't want to open up that map because it didn't do well last time. So for the sake of our cooking show, let's just do Quixel from in here. So with Unreal 5, Quixel is inside of Unreal. It's no longer like a standalone application of its own. So where do you find it? You find it in Windows and then Quixel Bridge. One thing I thought they would solve would be that it would already be signed into, but it's not. You still have to sign into it as well. So more two-factor authentication, which is annoying. So I figured that this would be resolved at this point, but no. And then we'll take a look at the mask material for Quixel. I know you guys can't wait. Like, what? More master materials, I know. I almost couldn't remember my password. Cool. This is very straightforward to use, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. But it's worth knowing that because, I mean, so Quixel was bought by Epic Games like 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And before then, it used to cost like $1,000 a month because we have just like this unlimited repository of things. And now it's free for Unreal users. It still works for Cinema 4D and Unity and all that kind of stuff. You just have to, if you use your Unreal login, it's free for Unity. If you do it through Unity's login, you have to pay for it. So just uh, everyone should have an Unreal login so you can get these things for free. Anyway, so we now have they've changed the layout a little bit, but they have 3D assets, 3D plants, surfaces, otherwise known as materials, right? Decals are like posters or things like stains and oil slicks or blood splatters or whatever. And then imperfections, which are just like little maps that you can go in. Those are textures you put inside of your materials to add a little bit of uh, organic ness to it. So you have those, and I don't see trees. No, it's not really trees. That's shrubs. So I think the Quixel tree thing is still outside of it in the marketplace somewhere, right? And then you have collections where you can see entire environments, and then you can export these assets as well. So super useful. I'd say since most of us are still working with uh, laptops at this point, I would definitely suggest doing as low resolution as possible. So let's get a bunch of ground, or let's get a bunch of like concrete or debris. I don't know. Right. So I logged in. It's not. So if you hover over an individual material, you can select on it. It'll let you look through the different components of it rendered in different lights. It used to be if you hold down Alt, you could change the light. Now it's Shift. They change these all the time. Maybe that's on 3D assets, actually. Okay, so see how it looks different lighting. And then I'm going to go down and make sure that it's low quality. I don't really want to take up space. This is an exercise. So I'm just going to make sure that I'm downloading the low quality version of this one. Let's find something that's wildly different color, low quality, download it with this icon. And then let's find something that's also a different color there. And then low quality. So see, I can either download it on the icon itself or over here on the right. And once it's downloaded, you can see that now it says add, or if I hover over there, there's a little arrow for exporting. So, and then also, if I come back to the very bottom, I can see that these are now locally on my computer. By default, they're saved to your C drive. If you want to change those settings and put it on like your storage drive, you come over to preferences and you can put in a different location for storing all this stuff. Cool. And then I'm going to take all three and then I'm going to add them. And by the sheer fact that my project is open, it's going to add it to this one open project that's inside of. So everything should be moving over to the project. It's going to make a new folder called Megascans. And then here are these surfaces. I already downloaded some surfaces before class. But what I like to do is go into the folder for the Quixel asset. I like to take the material out and put it on the top level so it's easier for me to navigate. Basically, the folders are just for me to store my textures inside of. So I'm moving it. I'm not making copies. I'm moving it. Great. And so now all my materials are there side by side. I prefer that. There's a lot of material functions. Those are all built into these MS presets. You don't need to dive into those, but just know that that's happening. This is a much more streamlined process, and usually it took a lot of time to load in. This is great. I'm enjoying this. Fantastic. Perfect. Okay, great. And then we can obviously apply these textures to our assets, let the shaders compile, and see that they're Really nice. Cool. So those are just materials. We do obviously have assets, which you're probably going to want to dive into to make your levels a little nicer. I'm not going to go too far into this because again, these are going to start cluttering up things, but you might want to paint some foliage, right? Here's more grass than you can ever shake a stick at if you like shaking sticks at grass, right? Again, I'm doing everything at low quality because I want to give my computer a break, right? Flowering plants, super fun. Be mindful of your storage space. And then obviously we need rotten tree stumps and a modular handrail kit. Right? Still doing low quality. This that's fine. They used to be able to show you different lighting scenarios. I got rid of it. Who cares? So again, I have surfaces, and now I haven't exported them. Let's go export them. Let's go to my local. Show selecting all of them and exporting all of them. Cool. So now we have a folder for 3D assets too, right? It's a rotten tree, modular thing, really straightforward, 3D plants. So it's giving us this whole folder structure of mega scans stuff. So this should be pretty exciting for you folks to really make your levels look nice, make it so your computer can barely run. I definitely need to have the modular spiral stairs in here. Oh yeah, that looks great. Oh, it's super modular. There you go. Cool. So, what about that whole master material thing? If we double click on it, you see that there's tons and tons of parameters here for your scene, which we can barely see. Let's add in a light. So we'll work light. Okay, great. Now we can kind of see. So some of the things that are most important are the first one, which is tiling. So this is tiling X and Y. This is moving it around to find like the right sweet spot. Sometimes you need to find a scale, right? You need to make it bigger or smaller. All right, so that's offset. That's tiling. Offset. Tiling is scale. So right, see now it's really small, right? Versus being huge. Cool. So that's really useful. And then some other things like metallic, specular, color offsets, roughness. All these things are here. You can override them. Like normal strength, that's how much the light affects the bumps. And so you can say here, from 1 we go up. All right, really pronounced or less. Cool stuff. So the last thing I want to show you from Quixel is that if I want to take 3 of these materials from Megascans, surfaces, and I can take the concrete, the castle wall, and let's add in that castle wall, or damaged concrete actually. So I'm holding down 3 of these assets, and I'm gonna go over to bridge, and I can do this also in here, and click this button right here, and I can create a blended material. I'm gonna call this one concrete, and it's gonna go into a folder called blend materials. Click the create blend material button, close it, and we now have a folder called blended materials with the material called concrete in there. And I have only briefly got a chance to kind of mess around with this, but if you bring in an asset with a lot of points, like for instance, I have my rock for my starter content. rock. And then we put this Megascan blended material on it. So now it looks like the one of the concretes. And if we look at the wireframe, we see we have enough geometry that we can actually paint the vertices. We can embed textures into the vertices, just like we did with body weighting for the skeleton. We can also do kind of like the same thing with the blended material. So I'm going to go into mesh paint mode. And this is called channel packing. I haven't really gotten into this, but essentially the first material that I loaded up is on the R channel. The next one's in the G, and the other one's in the B channel. We're basically going to turn off and on the channels to paint the blends of these. So we go to paint mode. You can see that I can now paint these different channels. Now, what I would want is for me to be able to see the texture and paint the textures in real time. That's what I have to do a quick Google search on. I haven't found it. What it's doing is it's going to show a representation of how they're painted together. I could see that being useful, but I would want to have it both ways. So if I'm painting, I'm basically painting away the red. Let's see. Let's load in. Let's see. Apply. Oh, let's not do that. Okay, concrete's in there. Why are you not showing me? You see how it has like this little circle, and I'm like, it's highlighting the vertex points. Let's see. Let's go back out of mesh paint mode, and nothing happened. Try it again. RGB channels, paint, do the thing. Yeah. Strength. All right. Let us just do a basic shape. And let's put this concrete material there. Did I do something wrong with material? Our cooking show's going off the rails again. Save all. And let me show another map. Oh. This is like a landscape in a sphere. This should open up pretty quickly. Come on, buddy. There you go. So you can see I do practice sometimes this stuff. Um, vertex paint, mesh paint, RGB mode, paint, paint. All right, so this is how it actually visualizes. I don't know why it's not showing it in the other map. These are the exact same settings. But you can see that I'm actually painting the inverse of the green channel, right? Come on. Colors, weights, textures, colors. You can see where I'm painting. All right, there's probably just one thing that I'm doing wrong. Oh, I think I did release color. I said swap. Ah, okay. So I was erasing the colors. I wasn't painting the colors on. Okay. So anyway, so I had to swap those two things by default. So you can see that I'm painting the inverse of red. See, it really doesn't really make sense. But you can be painting on blends of different textures, right? So now I'm doing like a blend between two textures, right? And you can see how this could be an interesting way of visualizing where you're not getting in the way of like really subtle texture changes. But I really want to be able to see the other way as well. So I'm sure it's one of these buttons. I haven't found it just yet. But then as soon as I close out of here, you can see that here's my material that I've painted these blends on. All right. And it used to not be that way in Unreal 4.2.7. So I'm still looking at it myself. I didn't have a chance to figure it out. But you can with these Quixel things, you can combine them together. You can see how you get really the more geometry, the finer your details can be, and the more you can blend between them. That's all I want to get to. Sorry, that was harrowing experience. Yeah. So I show you one way where I was selecting them. One of the reasons why I make all my materials in the top level is because I like to be able to select them and blend them. So you can only do up to 3. You go to bridge, and then these little preferences settings. You get to change the name, and then where it goes in the folder, and you hit create the blend folder. You can also just do it here in my surfaces, and I could just select these 3, and then you can just create it like this as well, straight inside of Quixel Bridge itself. Cool. Yeah, 3 things is the max. I've only done 3. I've never tried 2. 1 is pointless. And so that's a cool feature. Again, as you're adding more detail to your levels, you can't do this with a landscape. Landscape have its own blend materials. If you want to make a landscape have rocks and have soil and have grass, refer to the world of level design. It's a little bit of a process. It's not too hard, but there's lots of tutorials on that. Just remember this is just for static meshes, not for landscapes. Cool. We're doing time. Okay, good. So we have looked at our characters. Now we're going to look at motion capture, right? And then we'll be done for the day. So I did my demo from another computer, but I want to add motion capture to a character that's inside of this project. I happen to be sharing this project in a repository. We'll get into that in a few weeks. So I've actually downloaded my changes I did for the demo that I uploaded on Sunday, and these assets are in this project. So I have my skeletal meshes. I have one from Make Human, and it was rigged in Mixamo, and I have one from Ready Player Me. Mixamo's easier. We're going to do Mixamo first. So I don't even know how far to get into this with you guys, like why it's easier and why it's not. So this is my Ready Player Me. I'm going to go ahead and export it just because it's here. So right click, Asset Actions, Export. And then usually I make a folder, actually not that level. I make a folder next to my content folder, and I call it imports. And really important files, like my main characters, I'll keep next to my project, so I'm not like digging through my downloads folders. And so I'm exporting Ralph. For right now, we'll just say default. I think we should also do. Yeah, let's just make a default for right now. If we get into issues, we'll get into issues. And then let's take our other character. Oh, Bobby. Bobby was the Make Human character. Great. We're going to go back to our friend Blendar. And let me see if I already have it installed. I do not. Okay. So we're going to look at a add-on for Blender that's free. And I have a link to it in my fall demo. Use code. No, that is fine. We're going to download a plugin from Rococo. If you remember from last, we can watch Suzanne too. We can Rococo, if you might remember from last week's lecture, is a inertial suit, and they make a plugin for retargeting. It's actually meant for prevising your your Rococo suit animations in real time in Blender. But we're going to use it for retargeting. And then, Christopher, you put it in the general channel, the mocap?
Yes.
Okay, so general channel. Thank you. Thank you. And then I'll just grab a couple so it doesn't take too much time. Beach walking. Freak out. Don't. Download. And then flying propose. Who knows what that means? I'm happy with it. Okay, good. So we're gonna do make human first. Make human is gonna be for a Rococo suit. Rococo plugin, you do have to have a login. It's free. You can make it. So if I go to my downloads now, or if I go to my Blender, I go to edit, preferences, add-ons, and I can say install, go to my downloads, and I see Rococo suit, install, and then hit the checkbox. There's a walkthrough on the Rococo website too that has more in-depth information, but that is now a how you make a add-in plugins for Blender. There's tons and tons and tons of plugins for Blender, free and paid. Let it recover. Close unnecessary programs. There we go. Checkbox, there it is. Rococo is there. If you want to make sure, you go search for it. And then there's this thing on the side called the shelf that is where all your plugins are added. It'll be like this tiny little thing that's called a caret, a little triangle. When you open it up, there the things are. And you can see I have tons of plugins because I've been trying to find the easiest way to teach you guys retargeting in Blender. And this is the best way. Prove me wrong. All right, so I'm going to import my FBX of my character from my documents, Unreal Projects, in class, imports, and then I think Bobby. It doesn't have any animation. He's going to be a T-pose. And then I want to make sure that the bones are oriented correctly. And I think Bobby was like a little small or a little big, but that's fine. All right, there's Bobby. The materials might be wrong. It doesn't matter. I already have the skeletal mesh imported into Unreal. I just want the data from this, right? So there's Bobby. I think he's a little small, but that might be fine. And then let's bring in my animations, or was one of them. And Bobby is going to be getting a flying propose. All right, and then we do want to make sure we're bringing in animation, and then automatic born orientation. Fine. Cool. Oh, so there's two people. Okay. We're just gonna do one for right now. So I'm just gonna hit backspace and delete the one. All right, so we have Bobby and we have this other character. If I go over to my outliner and I find the actual skeleton right here, the armature, I go over to the poses, I can see that the rest position is a T-pose. All right, so by default, motion capture is in a perfect T-pose, and I can put it in the rest position. And then Bobby is in a T-pose. Super straightforward. This is great. Chef's kiss. Sign in. Oh, you think that the motion's not good? That's fine. It's a proof of concept. So I signed in, and the first sections are for about using Rococo Studio. We're not using that. We're just doing retargeting. So I'm going to select, you have two different options. You have source. The source is the source of animation, right? So that is human 1. And then Bobby is our target. We're going to put it onto Bobby. All right. And then we're going to say build bone list. Oh no, it doesn't do it for it automatically. Pain in the butt. When you do it for mixed mode data, it does it automatically. You just have to select the bones. I should figure it out already. I could have probably gone through the make human and renamed what's called a namespace, and it'd be much easier for it to figure out. So we'll just do. We won't get this. We won't get into like the fingers. We'll just do the major ones. Well, basically, I'm just saying don't be afraid to get dirty with these digital content creation tools. Right shoulder. The perfect pipeline does not exist just yet. And if somebody tells you it does, they're called real illusion. You don't believe them. Right hand. Again, don't care about fingers. Left leg. Nothing better than spectating somebody retargeting manually. Oh, what if I could just type it in? Left. Yeah. Leg. And then left foot. Motion builder is super easy. We're going to have to do it for the Ready Player Me character. Well, yes, because it's easier. Let's see, right leg, right foot. Well, that was fun. Okay, good enough for me. And then if I can save this if I want to. So these are custom naming schemes. I could say save or export, and then it's just a JSON file. Or I could have just done this manually inside of the JSON editor or something like that. So this is make human. And then once it's done, you had it done. Okay. And then what pose do I want to use it from? I want to use it from the rest pose because I proved the rest pose is the perfect T pose for the motion capture, not the current pose. So keep it rest pose and then say retarget animation. If it's done right, yep, you'll see this little thing and the hui and the what's it. I think the scale might confuse it, but this will probably work. So while it's thinking, we will get the Rococo plugin, and I will start a Week04 Week4 or O4, which is for Quixel and retargeting. Create. There we go, Week4. And there's Rococo. Let's go back and see where we at with Blender. That looks not right. That's disappointing. Let me show you how it looks with let's see, import yes, downloads. Or sorry, it was my projects, my real projects, and class imports, and then this one's gonna be Bobby. Let us scale it 10 times. Okay, let's bring in just mix some animation. For downloads. Uh, fine. Bobby may come bigger. One. Cool. Take this guy, move it off to the side, prove to ourselves rest post is a T-pose, open up Rococo, then find the source, which is Mixamo hips. Armature and hips. Yes, okay. Now if we build bone list, you see it does it automatically. But I rigged that character in Mixamo, so I don't know why. Oh, okay. It was the way it was pre-pinned from the motion from motive. Okay, so we have to look at how we're naming these things. So hips. You got hips. Oh, that could be the issue. He doesn't have hips. Import FPX. The links I'll go to make sure that people on Mac computers feel included. That's why I'm doing this, is because Motion Builder is only Windows. So trying to be accommodating. Bobby by 10. All right, Rococo, idea of hips. You do have hips now. Great. Rebuild bone lists and hips. Hips 01. Oh well. Let's see what happens without it. The one thing I do know is that it does repeat shoulder. It should be arm. And the other one should be shoulder, should be right arm. And then retarget. Spine is being used twice. So let's go and make that one blank. Retarget. Python says no, because it doesn't have hips. Well, for the sake of time, which we barely have any of, we're going to jettison the Blender retargeting. This does work. I promise this works. It just didn't work this time because I'll do it and record a little omnibus for later. But the main way of doing this is Motion Builder. I'm sticking with Motion Builder 2020 for right now. True to pandemic form, there was no Motion Builder 2021. Motion Builder says, nah, we're not going to do 2021. Motion Builder is only Windows, and it is like $3,000 software for doing one thing. It does it amazingly. And every year I spend like 40 hours trying to figure out how to remove Motion Builder from my pipeline. And I've talked to all my people in the industry, and everyone's trying to get rid of it because Adobe doesn't take care of it, but it does this amazingly. But get used to a really horrible layout for software. So the only feature that Motion Builder has added since 2014 is you can drag and drop models in. That's the only thing it's done. All right. So, but that's really great that we can drag and drop models in. So I'm going to take our Ready Player Me folks. So Ready Player Me is not in a T-pose, and I can't for the life of me, without going through a very complicated process of making it default in a T-pose. It's always this A pose, and it's a really long, complicated workflow to get it to be in a T-pose, but Motion Builder just works. So we're going to first load in our 3D model. So that's Unreal Projects, and we'll take, we weren't having any luck with Bobby, so let's go for Ralph. We're gonna bring in, we don't need the animation because, all right, we do Unreal take. And we'll see that it's actually in a T-pose because of, that's the animation take, is that it's actually playing a T-pose. It's not as default rest. But this is because I export it from Unreal. You see that the bones are crazy big. I can go, everything goes over on the left side, which I know you cannot see because Motion Builder is a nightmare. But I'm going to say select branches so that I'm selecting all the bones. See, they're all highlighted there. And over in properties, I'm going to make my skeleton settings, the bones are by default 100. I make them 1. There you go. That makes sense. All right, so there, he has one big root null. I can also make that 100. I don't really care. 1. There you go. Now we're happy. All right, and then if I want to see the bones, I can go to display and say X-ray to see my bones underneath. And we're going to T-pose. And then over in these tiny, tiny text things that I can't even read on my own screen, we have Asset Browser, a thing called Characters, and there's a thing called Character. So we are going to characterize the character. I know this sounds really redundant. We're just trying to tell it it's a biped. It's something with 2 feet, okay? So my hips are over here, and I'm going to drag this character all the way over to my hips and characterize them. And then why do we put on the hips? Because hips don't lie. All right. Now, what do we have? Well, in this tiny, tiny, tiny thing that says characters, we have a character, the name character, that's been characterized, right? Well, let's right click on that and just rename it to avatar, just for our own sanity. And let's bring in our motion capture. So if we're going to be in FBX, we could drag it in. If it's a BVH, we could say import motion file, but we're going to drag in our mocap, and let's do beach walking, bring it in, and now we're going to merge. We don't want to, that was stupid. We don't want to override, it'll delete our hard work. So bring it in, merge, and we want to bring in the animation called beach walking. There we go. We see we have 2 folks, and there they are walking on the beach. If we had more time in class, I could bring in the other avatar and make them do the same thing together. That would be a nicer demo, but we only have 4 minutes left, so I'm just going to make this happen. Going back to frame 0, I'm going to, no offense to the performance, but I'm going to get rid of one of these. Actually, I can leave it in, doesn't matter to me. We want to use human 1. So this taller one is the one we're going to put on Bobby. So in the same way we did before, we need to actually make sure it knows that it's characterized as a biped. And now in our character list, if we use a microscope, we can see that there's a character named character. We can rename that to data. I'm just doing that for clarity's sake. We can keep it. And if I double click on avatar, we say avatar. What's the input type? Well, we want the input type to be a character. And what's the character called? The character is called data. And then I say active. And then now we've got animation. Right? So if we'd had Bobby in there, Bobby would also be animating on the other character. And what's cool about this is that it's an inverse kinematic retarget. It knows about scale, right? So what's happening now with our character Ralphie is that Ralphie is actually taking bigger steps than well, actually Ralphie's not too much taller, but it scales it. See how Ralphie's further back? But then as we go forward, scrub forward, Ralphie goes a little bit further. So it scales the animation for the size. So if this was 100 times bigger, we'd be taking these huge steps, right? What Motion Builder has that it excels at is that it has all these different settings about how things are retargeted. And one thing that worth knowing about is, especially if you're doing a play and everyone has to hit specific marks on the floor, you can say under retargeting options, there's one thing called match source. We zoom in on the feed. When I say match source, it puts it exactly in the same space. So it actually makes the strides a little smaller so they actually hit all the points on the floor. That could be very important. Obviously, you can think about things with hands and grabbing and sight lines, all sorts of world of animation cleanup. But this is important for doing long takes, is that either you want to be scaled naturally. This is hilarious if you use like things that are 100 times too small or too big, because they take these giant steps. That's really, really funny. Or these tiny steps. So now that it's there, it's just active. We're going to plot it to the character. Plot to the skeleton. We can also plot to an amazing control rig. We can get more in depth on this stuff later on for the midterms. But for right now, we're just going to put it onto the skeleton, default settings. And then I can go back to my two datas, select branches, and delete. So now all we have left is our animation. Animation is just called Unreal Take. That's what it was called initially. I do have in my tiny little box down here, I can rename it to Walk Beach. And then I don't need the textures. I just need the motion. So I can say motion file export and then call it whatever I want to. So this could be called bitches. Export back in Unreal. Find Ralphie animations, beaches. I don't need a mesh. I just want to make sure that it's on Ralphie. Full length. There we go. Okay. There's an animation Unreal. We could trim it, right? So I want to start right here. So I could say remove from 0 to 175. And I could trim at the end and say remove from the end. Bring it in here. There it goes. Add in. Oh, I don't have live link on. Then we hit play. And there we are. Cool. So again, Motion Builder, if you don't have a PC, let us know. I can let you remote in and I can let you come use one of our PCs. The Rococo thing does work. I don't know what's wrong with my other model. But it doesn't work for Ready Play Me because of what I was saying about the rest poses. Motion Builder is it's just the way to do it. It's what you use in the industry. But that's it. I'm gonna hit stop. I did everything I wanted to do. Oh no, I didn't do anything with sequencer, but we'll do that next week. That's enough stuff right now. So take some screenshots, take some GIFs, redo your level, think about tangents, write about it, and